Welcome to the Crest Network, commercial restoration, education, and support training. I think all that's important, but the thing that makes Crest different from most other training facilities is the support part. With most training, you go get commercial education, you go to a class, you have a good time, you learn some stuff, and you leave. I think statistics have shown that when you sit in a class and you leave, your retention for what's said in that class, if you only hear it once, is a fairly low ratio. So the difference with the support when you sign up with Crest is you get continual support from some of the leaders in the country. You get Dick Wagner, who's a guru and a phenomenal person who can tell you how to market and how to go get jobs and coach you through that. You get Bill Giannone, and Bill's a Wall Street guy that's been chief financial officer for Restoration Company for more than a decade now, and he knows a lot about numbers and how to run a business and how to deal with insurance adjusters and consultants when it comes to numbers. And I am Scott Tarpley. I'm the production trainer with the Crest Network, and you can call me with any production questions when you're out on a job, when you're going to look at a job, or if you just have a question in general about anything production related, and up to and including where to get personnel and equipment to help do jobs. So Crest don't do the training and leave. Crest does the training, and then they stay with you as a support system through the entire time that you're with Crest. So it's a continual education with Crest. In the past, when we talk about the production side and the technical side of the training part, the first training we had was how to mobilize and the goods and bads and the do's and don'ts of mobilizing to a large loss. We talked a lot about the getting prepared for mobilization before the call comes in, and then mobilizing and all the goods and bads that go along with that. On the second one, we talked about equipment arrival and setup of the equipment on the job site. That pretty much the next thing you do right after you mobilize. You've got to get the equipment there and set up. You might even add into that equipment and personnel arrival, because we talked about personnel arrival in that a lot of times. Some jobs you might not have much equipment to place, and it may be heavy on personnel when you start talking about commercial work. So it could be equipment arrival, it could be personnel arrival. There's a lot of preparation work that goes into either one of those. And the third one was about doing your initial inspection and your scope of work that you see there in the bottom two blocks. That's not too different. Those sort of go together, inspection and scope of work. So that was the third one that we've done. So we're putting these in a progression step of a normal progression of a job. You know, first you got to get there, so that's mobilization. First you got to the next step of the job is to go back and get ready for the equipment arrival, and then obviously the third step. What we want to talk about today is how to conduct meetings. The key to communication. Once you get on a job and you've set up equipment and you've done the other necessary things to get the production of the job started, now it's time to start having meetings. It's important to notice that it's not always the same person that's going to be handling the production of the job, i.e. the production manager, that will be doing or conducting the meetings. Obviously, the production manager will be involved in the meetings, because a lot of the topics in the meetings would be things related to production. A lot of other things to talk about in these meetings other than the production schedule, although that will be part of it. So we want to talk about some ways of conducting meetings that have worked very well. They've got a good track record. Anything can always be done differently or improved upon. There's three ways to do something. There's the right way, the wrong way, and your way. So your way may still be the right way, although it may be a little bit different. but these are some key points that have proved to work in the past when we're conducting meetings. Meetings and communication are the key on the job to being able to get paid at the end of the job. A lot of us think we're in this business to dry buildings, or we're in this business to clean buildings after fires or floods. We're really in this business to make money and provide for ourselves and our families, and our employees. So keep that in mind. So even though the meeting part is not what you like to do, sometimes you'd rather be out watching the guys, carry equipment in and out, or watching the people cleaning stuff and getting the building returned back to its pre-loss condition. But meetings are a necessary evil. This to be part of that. We want to talk about some of the general rules around having effective meetings. It's the difference between having a meeting and an effective one. So let's try to make these minutes count. Keep in mind, first of all, that everybody involved in this meeting process is 10 times busier than they normally are. The property management and our owners they've got their regular daily tasks to run, but now their building's torn to pieces. They got a lot of decisions to make very quickly about who, what, when, where, and how to get things done. We've also got employees that work the business that are not working now. They've got to spend a lot of time figuring out how to retain those employees for the time they're going to be off, and make sure they don't jump ship and go get a job somewhere else, because we need those trained employees to come back to make the business successful. All that being said, be very, very aware of how important everyone's time is on this job. You're always better to leave a meeting 5 minutes early than you are to stay 5 minutes too long. People will get agitated at being there too long. The subject matters will go down. And so always make your meetings precise and to the point, and keep everybody's time in mind. We want to have a daily meeting. Now, these are called daily meetings. On some events, after the first few days, we may move them to an every other day meeting. It really depends on your customer. It depends on the dynamics of the job. It depends upon the speed that you've been asked to do the job. Some jobs you can do within a month or so. Some jobs you're expected to do within a few days. The jobs that are within a few days are going to require a lot more meetings to make a lot more decisions to keep the ball rolling, so you can make the job run smoothly. We want to talk about several different things, but why are their daily meetings crucial? Daily meetings are crucial because you've got to have a good line of communications. There's a lot of decisions that you cannot make. You have to have involvement from the property owner or the property management from doing that. Often the property owner or management is not going to make those decisions without involvement from the adjuster. A lot of times the adjuster is not going to make those decisions without involvement from consultants. A lot of times consultants are not going to make decisions without involvement from indoor air quality personnel, engineers, city building codes, county or state building codes, fire department codes. A lot of different things go into that. So when you're having meetings, all of that kind of stuff has to be discussed. So who should you include in your meetings? Should be key personnel. Anyone who's over a department, over an area. You basically have the team that the building owners and management want to bring into the meeting because they have something to add. Then you want to bring the team with the production side in, your administrative side, and that kind of things. Anybody in your organization that has something to add. We'll talk about it in a minute on a different slide, but beware of bringing subcontractors to a meeting. If they're a very specialty subcontractor, it may be good, but sometimes subcontractors, if they're not usually very educated into the insurance industry, they may say some things that are not very helpful to you. So it's better for you to get briefed from them in the meeting before the meeting, and then you go into the meeting and carry your folks in there. Set daily times for the meetings. I prefer them on mid-mornings. The reason, everything has a reason. The reason for that, you get there early in the morning, you get your crews started. Once you get your crews started and get all that worked out, you have your meeting, but it's not too late during the day to switch gears if someone in the meeting wants to change the set daily task that you have for that day. So you can get those changed, and then by the time the afternoon gets there, you've changed it and everybody has things going in the manner that they'd like it to go. You need to put out an agenda for the meeting before you go to the meeting. We'll show us an example of an agenda here in a different slide, but you need an agenda so people don't get surprised. They don't know what they're going to be talking about. They don't come prepared, and that only makes for an unproductive meeting. So we want everybody prepared for most of the things we're going to talk about and have an agenda. You know or should know what you need to talk about and what questions you need answered. Now, there'll be some things on there that you may not know about that the owners or management may bring up, or the consultants or the adjusters or anybody that the owners and managements have brought into the meetings. I would invite them when they come to the first meeting to get items that they would like included on the agenda to you maybe the afternoon before the meeting or by 7 o'clock or so the next morning, so you can include their items and people will be prepared for that. You will find out a lot of times you'll ask for that, but it still won't happen. A lot of things just come up during the meeting on the spur of the moment. So what do you normally include in the daily meetings? You know, if you had to narrow it down to 3 items, what you've done the last 24 hours, what you're doing right now, and what you're going to do the next 24 hours. So discuss safety on every meeting, discuss any concerns and issues with the job. So appoint someone that you have there to take notes and records of the meeting. You've got to keep a document, have these meetings documented so you know what's happening, and they should be able to take notes. You may also ask during the first meeting and ask for permission to record the meeting, so you not only have notes for the meeting, you have a recording of the meeting. These prove to be important sometimes when you need to go back and look up different facts of the meeting. So recordings are the best, but even with recordings, I want someone there whose only job is to take notes in case the recording was to fail. Once you take those notes, and within a few hours of the end of the meeting, they should be sent by email back to all the meeting participants or anyone who missed the meeting that may have been wanting to be there. And then you ask them at the end of that, did you have a clear understanding of what this is, and give anybody a chance to clear up any miscommunications in that. This is an example of an agenda. So this date is August the 6th, and you're going to meet in the upstairs conference room. The meeting time's at 11 o'clock on this particular meeting. Looks like we have Pure Clean and TDT is the folks in this agenda are conducting the meeting. So this has been sent out by their people. So the things that you want to put on the agenda, talk about completed focus clean on entire upstairs area for temporary workspace. So evidently somebody has brought up that they want the upstairs area cleaned so they can temporarily work up there with their staff. Gets back to the comment I was making earlier, when you have these building owners and managements worrying about what are they going to do with their employees. So in this case, they want a temporary upstairs office area. Now, by sending this agenda out in advance, this gives the production managers and his supervisors and that crew the opportunity to go out and talk about these items and to put together a plan, because you know that that's going to be brought up during the daily team meeting. We're going to talk about continued dehumidification of the affected office areas. We're going to talk about what's going good, bad, or indifferent with dehumidification. We're going to talk about where we're at yesterday, where we're at today, and where we plan to be tomorrow with dehumidification. Continued cubicle cleaning. So yeah, obviously on this project, are continuing to clean cubicles on the job site. So we want to talk about where we're at on that. Do we have 25% of the cubicles clean? Are they dry yet? Are they ready to be put back together? You know, what's our situation with cubicle cleaning? Next item is continued 24-hour cleaning in the production area. Clean all the bays, and we're reporting in this instance as 70% complete in the office and restroom areas. So you want to talk about, once again, in the production of the cleaning of this particular building, where you were yesterday, where you're at today, where you're going to be tomorrow. I know it sounds like a broken record, but get used to it. When you're conducting a meeting, what you done yesterday, where you're at today, where you're going tomorrow. So keep those things in mind. Meet with the Hartford adjuster and the consultant, or met with them. So we met with the Hartford adjuster and consultant, and now we want to share with the group our understanding of that meeting and how that went. And if the Hartford adjuster and consultant is in the room, we will give our version of how we thought that went and ask them, did we understand everything correctly and have we portrayed it very well, and ask them, you know, do you have anything to add? So we want to keep everybody in the loop. The worst thing you can do on these large losses is have a surprise of any kind. You want to keep everybody in the loop on what's going on. And then we talked about the server room, which keeps the heart of the business running, obviously with computers, and keeping it updated and where we're at on that. Then some other housekeeping areas. We talked about ERS, which is an electronics cleaning company. We talked about Potero, which is a different company there. It's a tenant. And we talked about Harper, a different company there as well. So the next 24-hour report, and we'll go through that. So this, you see at the top, this says previous 24-hour. In the next 24 hours, we're going to talk about a lot of the same things. We're going to talk about where we plan to be, though. Where do we plan to be? We're at 30% on the cubicles yesterday. But by the end of the day tomorrow, we expect to be 70% complete with them. Wherever you're at, you want to talk about those things and follow this agenda as you're going down. If somebody tries to get off track and gets ahead of the agenda, just say, hey, we've got that a little later on in the agenda. Let's talk about that in a minute. But you're in charge of this meeting. You're the professional that's been hired to do this project, and you need to act like a professional. Sort of like the doctor coming in the room to give you a report about your loved one that's just had surgery or something. They're the professional. They're going to come in and give you a report, and then they're going to give you the opportunity to answer questions. And you sort of want to do this the same way. Give a report, give people the opportunity to ask questions. Now you want to talk about issues. You know, some people call those problems. Some people might call them opportunities. I just call them issues. They could be good issues. They could be bad issues. We'll talk about the weather. You know, if it's going to rain, you got a lot of stuff going on out in the parking lots or stuff like that. That could be an issue. If it's going to snow or come an ice storm and you've got 100 people trying to get there to go to work, you know, everybody's going to be late. That could be an issue that would set you behind. Let's talk about the weather. Talk about hand washing. In this case, some of the issues. We're doing some hand washing here, and it's not going very well. It's not going fast enough. We want to talk about the issues that are involved with that. And then we may want to propose a different procedure for that, or we may simply just want to be reporting that it's not going as fast or as well as we thought it would be going. So talk about these issues. Talked about deodorization. We talked about computers. Talked about vending machines and who's responsible for those, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So, and then actions needed at the bottom, and who's the party responsible for taking that action. Because you don't want to talk about all these things and say, okay, have a good day, and come back in the next day and find out that nothing has been done about it. So you got to have, you got to know what items that you're going to be taking action on and who's responsible for that. So daily summary. So you went in and you had the meeting, and everybody understood the meeting, but now we need to document that meeting. So we send out a daily summary that basically tells the daily summary some of the things we talked about in the meeting. This may also just be a summary of the work that was performed for the day, and may not necessarily be the minutes of the meeting schedule. Just talk about in general what all was done and bring that in. It keeps everybody in the loop and lets everybody know what's going on the project. Share the agenda with other participants. If you don't share that agenda, you're going to be the only person in the room that knows what you're going to talk about when you go into the room. And while that might make you feel good for a minute, make you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, it does not do a lot for advancing the meeting. If everybody knows what's going to be talked about, they prepare for that, they ask their people questions, and they get answers for that. And so when you go in and you ask a question about a particular item, hopefully the people have prepared themselves and they're ready to answer that question. So it's not good to have hidden agendas. Always try to get those out at least a couple hours in advance. You may even set up to have them go out the afternoon before the morning meeting if you're only working one shift. I sort of recommend against send them out that early if you're working two shifts, because a lot of things can happen in that extra 12 hours that you're working. So then you might not want to send them out till early the next morning. So be a little bit cautious of that if you're working 24 hours around the clock. Start and finish on time. Nothing more frustrating to go into a meeting that's supposed to start at 11 a.m. and at 11:20 you're still waiting on people to arrive there. So start the meeting on time, maybe plus or minus 5 minutes, but wouldn't let it go any further than that. Keep your meeting structured, keep it going. If one party's out, you're going to send out minutes of the meeting. Later on, if they join after you've started the meeting, if there's something in particular they need to know, you may recap it a little bit, but try to start and finish on time. Try to set yourself a personalized time limit on these meetings. You don't want a meeting to stretch on forever and ever and ever. These people got a lot of stuff to do, and you have a lot of stuff to do. So get in the meeting, ask the questions, get the answers, talk about the issues, get in, get out. A meeting should last 15 to 30 minutes, some of it depending on the size of the job and how many participants are in the meeting, but they should go by rather quickly. You will find out that the building management owners don't work on Saturday and Sunday always like you do, so your Saturday and Sunday meeting may last 5 minutes. The building owners and participants may not be there, but still go ahead and have your meeting, start and finish on time, discuss the items, and send them out the record of the meetings when you get through. Remember to divert your calls, walkie-talkies that are on job sites and different things for other people to answer for you so you're not interrupted during the meeting, and try to encourage others to do the same thing. However, you've got some calls that just cannot be avoided sometimes during these meetings, so try to hold that down to a minimum. So follow your agenda, try to keep it going, down the list, and after the first day or two, the people coming into the meeting will understand, hey, we've got an agenda, we're following the agenda. Ask people during the meeting if they have something for tomorrow's agenda to let you know, and you'll have that put on the agenda. Agree upon actions and responsibilities, like on the bottom of the previous slide we showed. Talk about what action you're going to do, about what you talked about, and who's responsible for seeing to it that it happens. and always, always, always have a safety topic of the day. Now, these safety topics shouldn't be something you have to invent. Every day already at your workplace, you go through safety items. So these can be pre-designated topics such as slip and fall. That's good on a rainy day, or cleaning with wet solutions in a building. Talk about electrical hazards, trip hazards, ladder safety, lift safety, wearing your hard hats, wearing your safety glasses, how to properly position or climb a ladder, how to properly back up a truck in a crowded area. The list goes on and on and on and on. This should take about 1 minute to talk about your safety topic and your reporting to the group. Today our safety topic was trip and fall. We want to keep the hallways clear of clutter, clear of extension cords or drop cords or hoses running across the pathways, and we have a safety officer on site. And the person that's a safety officer is Tom Paramedic, and Tom Paramedic's going to make sure that everything stays safe on site. It's his job to walk around and do that. So talk about that safety a good bit. Report any concerns that you see, safety concerns. And it's important to report some concerns if you have them, not to really just try to hide them and sweep them under the rug, so to say. Keep it honest, keep it up front. If you have an issue, report it so we know we don't have the issue again. Make sure you have your safety data sheets on site. If you've got a cleaning chemical agent or a bottle with liquid in it, even if it is water in a spray bottle, it's got to be labeled. It's got to know what it is. So have all your safety data sheets there that are available for your meeting, but they've got to be available to the people out doing the work as well. So you can't stick them in a filing cabinet in a drawer somewhere. They've got to be out and available for people to see should something happen. Have an emergency eye wash station when it's appropriate, when you're doing stuff that could cause eye injuries or get chemicals or solutions or anything in your eye. Make sure people are wearing their proper goggles. Make sure they're wearing proper face shields when they're needed. But an eye wash station and a first aid station is a must. In an emergency, call 911. Have that posted. Closest phone to call an emergency is located at. You probably could just write in your hip pocket there because everybody carries a cell phone, but let them know where the closest phone is if they don't have a phone available. Where's the first aid kit located? They got to know where that is and write it down. You also would have, if you have a safety manager for minor incidents not deemed a 911 emergency that they go to, you should have someone on your staff that is there, or have someone that you bring in that may not be on your staff that is trained in first aid, maybe an EMT, maybe a paramedic, maybe a nurse, depending on how many people you have there is what that quality would need to be. Good place to find those people if you're out of town on jobs. The fire department gets some off-duty firemen that want to come in and they can be your safety officer and your first aid officer pretty much at the same time on a medium-sized job. If it's a large job, you may need a safety officer and an additional health person to take care of minor emergencies and to make sure that's going on. Make sure everybody's aware of where fire extinguishers are located, and one of your safety meetings may be a brief training on how to properly use a fire extinguisher. So have that around as a safety board. If you put all that on a tripod board and paint it with first aid and safety on it, and maybe put a little orange flag on it so you can tell everybody, what to do in the case of an emergency and how to do that. I mean, that's something you charge for. It's a cost of doing business. It's not a cost of doing business. That is an item that you would have on your job. Don't have it pictured here, but you also have an air horn on there. And you should have instructions, written in the white area of this. 3 blasts of the air horns in repetitive concession means to get out of the building. 1 blast may mean it's break time. So have some emergency guidelines there to go, but you've got to have a whistle or an air horn or a way to signal a massive amount of people in an area if you've got a lot of people working in the area. You go through your meeting, you want to ask each person that's sitting at that table if they have an item to discuss. I prefer not to do that in a general comment. I prefer to go around and say, okay, John, have you got anything you'd like to bring up? Let John say yes, no, or bring something up. Okay, Sally, have you got anything? And I like to go all the way around the table. If they're important enough to be in that room, they're important enough to be called on to ask if they have any items they need to discuss. Is it safety concerns? Is it, I got an area of priority we need to be working on? Or I need you to slow down on this until my people can catch up. So it could be a very different things, but don't like just throwing out there, has anybody got any questions? Because, you know, a lot of people like to just sort of sit in the back and drop their head a little bit. So go around the entire table and ask anything to say. Some people simply shake their head no, and you continue on around the table, but get in the habit of doing that every day so you can find out if there is an issue that needs addressed. You're better to address it early on. And you know, it may be a good issue. They don't always have to be bad issues. It may be something going good. So use caution in inviting subcontractors to the meeting, particularly if you're not used to working with this sub. If they have an area of expertise, I may invite them into the meeting to talk about one item and then they can be dismissed. But you really don't want a subcontractor coming in and sitting at the meeting from start to finish. It's wasting their time. They're not supervising their people. And if you've got an electrical subcontractor there, he could care less about what the plumber's doing or the carpet cleaner's doing or the building owners are doing. And we don't really need his input on that. So keep your subs to their area. Better yet, try to get your reports from the sub before the meeting starts so you have a good idea of how to address anything that comes up. And then simply if something's brought up that you don't know the answer to, I don't know is not a bad word. You know, just say, I don't know, but I will get that information and report back to you. And get that information and report back. But use cautions with subs. Let's talk about a different type of meeting. It's a pre-adjuster meeting. I have no idea why that guy's got a whole bunch of money in his back pocket, but it's not to indicate to bribe the adjuster. Those are the old days. Nobody does that anymore because you get put in jail. So don't try that. Don't go down that street. Let's talk about the pre-adjuster meeting. Now, what a pre-adjuster meeting is you meeting with your client and you're talking to the client about how the meetings are going to go when the adjusters show up. In the first place, I'd like everybody that is listening to this meeting, whether it be today or tomorrow or next week, to just go ahead and send me a text with the name and the company that the adjuster works for that has adjusted your estimate in an upward fashion. In other words, he has paid more than you have had on your invoice. So by pure definition, an adjuster is going to adjust. And most of the time that is in a downward fashion. Now, your client needs to know that. You've got some adjusters that have come in, and I think you've all had them, that'll tell the client when they get there, well, these contractors always charge too much. They always take too long. They try to hype up the job and make more money. And it's our job to keep this thing reasonable, to make sure it goes good and to put you back where you belong at a reasonable rate. And the adjuster is going to have a spill that he says like that, and all that's fine and well. But your client needs to know that that adjuster is probably not going to come in there and say, hey, everything looks great today, and here's a check, and I don't see anything wrong with any of the pricing. It all looks great, and I'll see you tomorrow. Adjusters are going to adjust. That's what they get paid to do. So you need to prepare your client for what's going to happen with that. On a large loss project, Adjusters are going to bring in consultants. Here's some example of consultants that I've worked with in the past, and I'm sure all of you either have or will. JSL is one of the largest in the world, and they are very large in the United States as well. Young and Associates is a large consulting firm. Interstate Consulting. Interstate has a restoration company, and they also have a consulting firm. Madison Kepler is another consultant. Some adjusters will use a peer review for consulting. I'm going to back up and talk about that in a minute. Meridian Consulting is another consulting company. And all these people are paid to consult and give the adjusters advice on what they think is fair. Likewise, with an adjuster, I've never seen a consultant come in and say, you didn't charge enough, you need to bump this invoice you've given me up because you severely undercharged. Never heard that. Now, they might tell you that on a line item. They might say you didn't charge enough for water extraction, but you charged too much for air movers or something like that. But in general, they're not going to make the dollar amount of the claim go up. It's their job to hold the dollar amount of the claim down and to give the adjuster the information that they need from a different perspective other than the contractors. So they all do a pretty good job. They all want information in a different form. However, I will say that most of these listed on this page, and these are the bigger ones in the country, will not work for contractors. They only work for the insurance company, and they consult for the insurance company. There are consultants out there that work for the contractor that help the contractor get their ducks in a row. They help the contractor make sure their invoicing looks proper and that their invoicing is going to have the information that the consultant needs to be able to justify your bill to give it to the adjuster. So some of the things you're going to run into, most of these consultants are going to start on jobs at 75 to 100,000 or above. I've never done a large loss over 250,000 that the adjusters do not hire consultants on. And then the adjuster just sort of sits back and waits on the consultant report. And, you know, they do a lot of the adjuster's work because, after all, the adjuster is just one person. Now, peer review is when they bring your competitor in and have them to look at your bill in a review after you've done the work. Now, personally speaking, I think that's pretty unethical. And if you're doing it, I'd invite you to step back a little bit and look at how that looks and how that is to have a competitor who wanted the job and who did not get the job, and now they're going to come back and beat you up on your pricing or beat you up on the way that they done the job. So if you're doing that type of stuff, sort of look at it, scratch your head, and say, is that really the boat I want to be in? But that's what a peer review is. They bring in what they call one of your peers, and they have them to armchair quarterback the estimate and to look at it at the end. So, you know, if they want that person to be there in the beginning and help you go through the job and help you make decisions on the job or give their input on decisions to be made, that's one thing. But to just review your bill and tell somebody why it could be cheaper, shoulda, coulda, woulda been cheaper, is not a very good way of doing business, in my opinion. So keep track of your insurance and adjusters and consultants. You may work with this guy, and I'll never forget this guy. He was so easy to work with, and I love working with this guy, you know, and 5 years later, you're working with him again, and you've forgotten his name. You have no idea who he is because you've done 600 jobs since then. So keep track of the insurance adjuster and the consultants. Keep a file on them by name. Know their likes and dislikes. You know, you might have a consultant that, you know, likes, you know, putting enough equipment on the job to get it done. He may dislike paying hotel and per diems. Now, that's not going to say you're not going to charge for hotel and per diem or you're going to follow his likes or dislikes. It's just to say you're writing notes down about what he did do in the past, what his likes are, what his dislikes are, and then you don't have to reinvent that wheel the whole time. It's something you can talk about up front and get worked out in the beginning. Know their style. Some adjusters have a bulldozer style. They want to come in, and consultants as well. They want to come in like God with a checkbook and boss you around and tell you exactly what to do. And you know, they make a high stress situation. You may have a production manager who don't know how to take that, but if you know their style up front and you tell your production manager, hey, this guy likes to come in and throw his weight around a little bit, but you know, underneath he's a good guy, so you know, don't let that get under your skin. You know, just work with him and he'll be all right. So know their style. The other style may be they may sit back in the corner and not ever say anything until it's time to write the check. So know their style, know their likes, know their dislikes. Job site habits. Did this adjusting company come to the job site 30 minutes before you did every day and leave 30 minutes after you did every day? Or do they pop in once every week or two and check on things and talk to people? Do they keep scheduled meetings or scheduled events or scheduled conference calls? Are they easy to ask questions to and to work with? So just know a little bit about their habits. Their hot buttons, once again, if somebody's just got a hot button and they just are very, very, very adamant about they're not paying for emergency service calls to go to the job on the first day, and that's a small item and you can rename it and still make it work out, and you know that's a hot button, then you know what to do, what you're dealing with and how to work with that. What's their personal interest? You got kids in soccer, you got kids in baseball, kids that race motorcycles, kids that are cheerleaders. You know what that is. And when you see them 5 years later and you say, hey, how's that little baseball player going? Has he made the World Series and pitching yet? If he's a pitcher, you know, just let them know you remember them and talk to them a little about that. That goes a long way. We tend not to do this with adjusters and consultants. Other qualifications. I had an insurance company fly a water damage expert consultant. It was on his business card. That's his title, water damage expert consultant. They flew him in from Washington State into Houston, Texas, to be a water damage expert consultant on this commercial loss. Got to chatting with him the second or third day he'd been there, and his qualification, one and only qualification, was he had the IICRC. I have the IICRC. And I'm like, oh, well, what's that? And they said, well, it's training. I said, oh, okay. What kind of training? He said, well, I got the WRT training. And he said, that's for water. That means you know what you're doing. And so, see, he just told me I knew what I'm doing because I got that too. So we made both of you on the same page. But know a little about their qualifications. It's not an interrogation. It's just you're having a friendly conversation and finding out if they know what they're doing or not. Are they armchair quarterbacks? You know, do they wait to the end and look at the bill and go over the bill and that's it? So know what they're doing there. Some of them are clerk of the works. So those are the guys that are going to come there. We call them penny pinchers or bean counters. They come in 30 minutes before you get there. They leave 30 minutes after you do. They count every person on the job. They count every piece of equipment on the job. They keep up with their hours. If they stand around and talk on their cell phone, they'll write that down. So they're a clerk of the works. Their job is to clerk that job and to make sure that people that they are being charged for are actually there and they're actually working. And that's not a bad thing. You just have to keep your people motivated and keep them going as you should do anyway. Document your meetings. We've talked about that a little bit. Report your job progression steps. Address any safety concerns, any other concerns. And it says discuss payment draw schedule. That's not in your daily meeting. That should be a meeting after the meeting that you get with the appropriate financial people that you're working for, or maybe the adjuster consultant may be involved in that. But have that meeting after the meeting. Don't have that in the general population of the daily meeting. Don't get caught up in the game, delay, deny, defend. We know there's some insurance companies out there that play this game. Most of them do not. Most of them are fine. but they want to delay the claim, they want to deny the claim, then they want to defend it. And if you hadn't read this book by Jay Finneman, please get this book and read it. It is out of production for the most part. We have them privately produced from Mr. Finneman, but we'll order several in advance. So if you need one, give me a call and ask for it. I'll get you one. I'm not making money selling books. It's whatever we pay for them, what you will get it for. But it is a great book. It's a short read, but it tells you how insurance companies operate. It tells you how the adjusters are trained. It tells you what they're doing. And once you understand the rules of the game, you've got a better chance of winning the game and not getting lost within it. How to handle conflict in the meeting rooms. Uh, sometimes you'll have somebody there that just brings up some conflicting issues that you have to deal with. You're on a live audience, you're on live TV. You've got to deal with it. So focus on the issue of the conflict, not the personality. If he's screaming, yelling, and using profanity in the meeting, he's the one out of control, not you. Don't let him sucker you in to his personality or cause you to stoop to his level. Keep it professional. Find out what the issue is. Listen carefully. Identify what the issue and the disagreement is, and prioritize that area of conflict. With that person, ask them to help you develop a plan to work on that conflict, and then start working on that. Ask others for input when it's appropriate and necessary, and then inspect what you expect. If you put somebody in charge of handling this area of conflict, then you've got to put somebody in charge of that. I'll give you a couple examples on that just real quickly. I had one, we're doing a huge corporation building in Nashville, Tennessee. And one of the areas of conflict that somebody just got unwired about was we're at their world headquarters. We're tearing that building apart from the inside out. We had 14 days to do a $12 million project. But there were Coke bottles and water bottles and lunch sacks sitting all over the parking lot, on every car, on the hood of the cars, on the back of trailers. The garbage cans in the outside were running over and flowing onto the sidewalk below. And it was just a huge embarrassment. And this guy was really like coming unglued about that. So what did we do? We talked about that. We told him that would be handled today. And then we inspected what we expected. Well, we took two people. We overcorrected a little bit. We put one person inside the building, one person outside the building, and their job was to keep trash picked up and to make the place look good. And then we hired a lawn cutting service to come cut the grass because we had equipment in the grass, and the regular lawn cutting service would not do that. And yeah, we put it on the bill. So that was a good example of something very little becoming, it was a big problem to somebody, but it's a very little problem. And the correction of the problem was very simple, just to put somebody in charge of it. We had another company was working for, and we had 140 or so people there working with this company out of the Carolinas. And the property management of that had a really big problem with anybody standing around and talking. And if he seen anybody not working, standing around talking, he just had a fit. So our solution to that problem, to make sure that didn't happen, we put two supervisors in charge of walking the building 24 hours a day, or on their shift, two per shift, and making sure that nobody was standing around. They had to be cleaning or working or doing something to solve that conflict, and it worked very well. So make conflict resolution a priority. That's not something you want to back burner. It may not be important to you. It may not even be important to getting the job done, but it is important to who brought it up. You only get one mulligan to fix that. If it happens again, then you're not being very attentive of that. Final thoughts. Keep all meeting and conversations and emails professional and courteous. From this, you'll gain the respect that you deserve. Don't send emails at inappropriate hours or in the heat of the moment if you're upset about something. And remember, one day you might be required to read these emails in a court setting, so you want to be something that can be read as if your mother was reading them. So make your mother proud, keep the emails professional, keep them kind, and get your points across, but you don't have to involve an attitude with it. So this has been a presentation by the Crest Network. I am Scott Tarpley. I look forward to seeing you at the next show. Thank you.